Hi, Great Heart Scholars. It's Ms Sendra from Archway Scottsdale, Athenaeum, and today we're going to learn a lot more about our five senses, and we're going to look at how lucky we are to have our senses. Then we're going to do a couple fun activities related to that, and then a scavenger hunt where we can explore our environment by using our five senses. So let's remind ourselves, what are our five senses? This little chart helps us do that. So if you see here at the top is a sense of taste. And even though this shows a mouth here, it's really our tongues that we use for our sense of taste. Then we'll take a look at our sense of touch. And even though this shows a hand here, it's really our skin that provides us with a sense of touch. Next, we'll examine our eyesight and how we see using our eyes and how that information gets fed to our brains. Then we'll take a look at our sense, our smelling, and how we use our noses to smell. And lastly, we'll look at how we hear and how that information gets fed to our brains. So we're lucky to have our senses, and more often than not, people take their senses for granted. And so this activity and lesson will help us realize how lucky we really are to have our five senses. This chart shows our five senses and how all that information from our five senses gets fed to our brain, and that's how we interpret it. So we're going to look at that a little bit more closely. So this picture here shows a picture of our tongue, all right? And our tongues have over 2,000 taste buds. Different taste buds are used to taste things that are sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. And did you know that different parts of your tongue are used for tasting these different tastes? Our taste buds feed this information to our brains, and this is what allows us to know that lemons are sour and that candy is sweet. Just thinking about sour things will probably make your taste buds react. Now I want you to consider what it would be like if you had no taste buds at all. Would you want to eat a piece of chocolate cake if it tasted, let's say, like eating a piece of cardboard? Probably not. So we are lucky that we have our sense of taste. Next, we're going to talk about our sense of touch. Since it's our skin that we use for our sense of touch, it means that you can sense things with all parts of your body, not just with your hands. Think about petting a fluffy kitten or someone pinching you. Our skin allows us to sense cold, and here's snow, and warm, and it allows us to sense pressure and pain. Here's somebody getting pinched, okay? Certain parts of our body have more nerve endings and therefore are more sensitive. They are our fingertips, our lips, and our nose. And it's our sense of touch that tells us when we've stubbed our toe. Ouch! Now let's think about what it would be like if we did not have a sense of touch. What if you were sitting by a campfire and a burning ember flew up and landed in your lap and it was burning you? But if you didn't have a sense of touch, you would not know that you're being burned. You would not be able to tell that snow is cold or that someone poked you with a pin. That would be very strange now, wouldn't it? So we are lucky to have our sense of touch. Next, we're going to look at our sense of sight. Our eyes provide us with the sense of sight by allowing light to enter through our eyeballs. The light first enters through our cornea, and then it goes through our pupil, and then our lens, and the retina, which is this big part here, before it feeds the information through our optic nerve to our brain. This all has to happen before we know what we are even seeing. Wow, isn't that amazing? Have you ever thought what it would be like to be blind? We're so lucky to have our sense of sight. Try closing your eyes right now and think, how hard would it be for you to type your name on the computer keypad? Or think about if you had to walk to another room in your house. How many objects do you think you would run into? Probably be using your sense of touch to help you or to know when you actually did stub your toe. Ouch again. So therefore, we are lucky to have our sense of sight. Next, we're going to examine our sense of smell. We use our nose to be able to smell things. The scents around us enter our noses when we breathe in. And inside our noses, we have what's called olfactory receptors. Olfactory receptors. And then that passes the sense into our limbic system in our brain. This is what then allows us to know what we're actually smelling. Think about some of your favorite smells. What might they be? I love the smell of baking cookies or the smell of fresh cut grass. What if you had no sense of smell? You wouldn't know if something was rotten, or you wouldn't be able to smell the flowers. So therefore, we are very lucky to have our sense of smell. Lastly, we're going to talk about our sense of hearing. And our ears are the organs that provide us with this sense of hearing. The sounds enter through the outer part of our ears and goes through the ear canal, but it's really our eardrum that's in here that does the work and passes the vibrations through to our brains. And that allows us to be able to tell what we're hearing. In a moment, I want you to cover your ears so that you can understand what it would be like if we did not have the sense of hearing. You wouldn't know it if your mom or dad was calling you or if a drum was beating right next to you. That would be very strange, wouldn't it? So let's cover your ears for a moment and see what you would think about that. Our first activity is going to be looking at this little chart here where we have 5 objects and we show our 5 senses. And what we're going to try to do is figure out which one matches to which object matches to best to which of our 5 senses. So let's start at the top. We see a trumpet here. So a trumpet is something that makes a lot of noise. So therefore, it would go to which of these 5 senses? Not our taste. Oh, I do believe it would go to our sense of hearing. All right. Second, we have a picture with a sun and a little tree in the picture. What would we do with the picture? We couldn't taste it. We couldn't hear it. Oh, we could see it. So therefore, this would go to our sense of sight. Next, we show a flower. Well, we don't really eat flowers that often, so we wouldn't be tasting it, or we can't hear it. We could see it. The sense that the most related to it would be the sense of smell. So that would be going to our nose right here. Here's a pin. A pin. We wouldn't be tasting a pin. We wouldn't be hearing it. We could see it, but that's probably not the dominant sense that we would use. We can't really smell it, but if it pricked us, we would definitely feel it. So that would be the sense of touch. All right, that leaves one item left. That's a delicious piece of pizza. Who doesn't love the way pizza tastes? So that would be going to the sense of taste. All right, very good. We've matched our 5 senses to these 5 objects. All right, the next little fun thing that we're going to do is I'm going to name some activities for you, and you're going to try to think through and determine what senses would you be using when you're performing that activity. Often, we use more than one sense at a time to interpret what is actually happening. So the first activity that I want you to think about is bouncing a ball. So if you were bouncing a ball, think, what senses would you be using? Would you be using the sense of taste? No. Would you be using the sense of touch? Oh, yes, sense of touch. Would you be using the sense of hearing? Well, you would probably be hearing when that ball hit the ground when you were bouncing it. So yes, you would be using the sense of hearing. And how about the sense of sight? Yes, you could be seeing what you're doing. Would you be using the sense of smelling? No, I think not. So for bouncing a ball, you'd be using 3 different senses. Sense of touch, sense of hearing, sense of sight. Now let's think about another activity. That would be eating a chocolate chip cookie. So think right now, what senses do you think you would be using? Have you thought of them? So the first one comes to mind for me is the sense of taste. Yum, chocolate chip cookies. And usually when we're tasting things, we can also smell them. So using your sense of taste and smell together, you often know what something is. Also, you'd be using your sense of touch. You'd be touching the cookie as you're eating it. It'd be touching maybe your lips and your tongue as well. So it's sense of touch. And you can see your cookie, so that would be a sense of sight. How about this activity? Watching a movie. What senses would you be using if you were watching a movie? So the first one, obviously, is sense of sight, because you would be seeing it. And you would be hearing the sounds to the movie as well. So you would only be using 2 senses there, the sense of sight and the sense of hearing. Last activity let's examine is if you were taking a bath. What senses would you be using if you were taking a bath? So if the water was too hot, or maybe even too cold, or maybe just right, that would be using the sense of touch. Touch. And you can see your bath, so that would be the sense of sight. There is not really a taste or a smell unless you're smelling your bubble bath. Those are our activities, and that has us think that when we're doing things, we're using multiple of our senses at the same time. The last thing that we're going to do is an activity called a 5 Senses Scavenger Hunt, where you can look around the room or your house to see if you can find all these things listed on the scavenger hunt. So let's review what they are. First thing is you need to find something that makes a crunch sound. Then find something that tastes sour. Find something that smells good. Find something that's smooth. Find 3 of the same thing. How would you know that they're the same thing? Find something that smells bad. Ew. Find something that tastes sweet. Yum. Find something that's loud. Find something that's long. Find something that's soft. Find something that's white. Also find something that's quiet and something that's rough. So let's see if you can complete this scavenger hunt and find all of these things that help you with your senses and to not take your 5 senses for granted. So this is Ms. Sendra, and you're using your sense of hearing right now to hear me say goodbye and have a great day.